Do you hear that voice in your head right now? The one that decides whether to keep watching this video or scroll on? The one that says, "What if this is boring? What if I'm wasting my time?" Remember this feeling, because in 15 minutes you will understand who is really speaking. In Guy Ritchie's film Revolver, there is a character everyone is terrified of: crime kingpin Sam Gold. Gangsters whisper about him in the dark corners of casinos, tremble at the mention of his name, and are ready to kill at his slightest word. The problem is that no one has ever seen him. Not a single photo. Not a single witness. Not a single piece of evidence that he exists at all. How can you be afraid of someone who is not there? How does an invisible boss control the entire criminal underworld? And strangest of all, why does the main character Jake, after leaving prison following 7 years in solitary confinement, find out that Sam Gold has been controlling his life the whole time? 3 experts are now going to try to solve this riddle: a psychologist, a film critic, and a philosopher. And once you learn the answer, you will never look at your life the same way again. Who is Sam Gold? The answer is somewhere out there in the debate. Let's go. Round 1. 3 views on the mystery. Psychologist. You know how sometimes you lie awake at night and there's a voice in your head saying, "You're not good enough. You'll be deceived. You must be better than everyone else"? This voice is constantly demanding something, fearing something, competing with someone. Imagine that this voice has become so strong that it got a name: Sam Gold. It is as if your inner critic suddenly came to life and turned into a real character. He lives inside, but it feels like he is outside, powerful, dangerous, all-seeing. Every day we follow his orders: earn more money, prove that you're cool, trust no one. They will laugh at you if they find out the truth. And the trickiest part is that we think this voice is who we are. But what if it isn't? What if Sam Gold is just our fear, greed, and pride that we have mistaken for our true self? Psychologists call this false self-identification, when a person confuses their thoughts with who they really are. Gold is a collection of all our fears that has been given the status of dictator of our life. FILM CRITIC. Ritchie shows something ingenious. All the characters are afraid of Gold. They speak of him with horror in their eyes. They build whole theories around him. But when the camera is supposed to show him, there is no one there. This is not a director's accident. It is the key to solving the entire film. Remember the elevator scene? The main character, Jake, is going down and he is literally being torn apart from the inside. Panic, cold sweat, trembling hands. He is going insane with fear. But no one is touching him. The elevator doors are closed. He is alone. The enemy is not outside. He is inside his head. And that is precisely why he is so terrifying. Or take all those chessboards that constantly flash in the frame. They are a symbol of the game in which Gold arranges the pieces and manipulates people. But who is playing? Jake himself against himself, only he does not realize this until the very end. Ritchie uses a classic trick. He forces the viewer to look for a physical villain with a face and a gun, and then, bam! It turns out that all along the hero has been fighting his own ego. It is like Fight Club, only through the prism of crime and Eastern philosophy. Philosopher. Ancient sages thousands of years ago spoke of one important thing. There is the true self and the false self. The false self is a collection of our fears, desires, ambitions, memories, and plans that pretends to be us. In Eastern teachings, this is called the ego. Not in the sense of conceit, but in the sense of the illusion of separateness from the world. Imagine you are looking at your reflection in water and think that this is reality. But as soon as the wind blows, the reflection becomes distorted, broken, and frightening in its shapes. It is the same with Gold. He is like a mirror in which the hero sees a distorted version of himself, greedy, cruel, paranoid, obsessed with control. The philosophers of antiquity said, "Know thyself." But to do that, you must first see who you are not. In the film, gold is the devil, but not the biblical horned character with a pitchfork, rather an inner deceiver, a tempter. His best trick is to make you believe that he is you, that his voice is your voice, that his desires are your desires. And as long as the hero believes in this game, as long as he identifies with gold, gold remains omnipotent and invulnerable. Round 2. Mutual criticism. Psychologist criticizes the philosopher and the film critic. Listen, philosophy sounds beautiful and profound, but how do these ancient ideas about the false self explain specific scenes in the film? When Jake is shaking in the elevator, it is a real panic attack that can be described clinically: an adrenaline surge, increased heart rate, activation of the amygdala in the brain. And a question for the film critic. If everything is about symbols, chessboards, and metaphors, why does the average viewer get confused and fail to understand the film on the first viewing? The film received mixed reviews precisely because people expected a typical Guy Ritchie gangster action movie but got a philosophical parable instead. Maybe the director simply overcomplicated things and got too carried away with intellectual games. Where is the balance between depth and accessibility? The film critic criticizes the psychologist and the philosopher. So the psychologist talks about the inner voice and the panic attack. Okay, that is clear on the level of mechanics. But why, then, does Ritchie show the real crime boss, Matcha, whom gold supposedly controls? If it is all about Jake's inner world, why is there a whole bunch of other characters who also talk about gold? And to the philosopher, you speak of illusion and the reflection in the water, but people actually die in the film. Blood is spilled. There are shootouts. Is that all just a metaphor too? Or does the film work on two levels at the same time, a literal crime plot and a philosophical subtext? How is a viewer supposed to understand where reality ends in the world of the film and symbolism begins? Where is that boundary, and does it even need to be clear? The philosopher criticizes the film critic and the psychologist. The psychologist reduces everything to brain mechanics: fears, panic, neurotransmitter chemistry. This is important, but it misses the main point. Why do we identify with this voice at all? This is not just a psychological problem or a malfunction of the brain. It is a fundamental existential error of human existence. And the film critic? Yes, the symbolism is complex, the film is multi-layered, but is that not the essence of true art? A film should make the viewer think, make their mind work, not just entertain and chew everything up into puree. The question is, can cinema even convey the experience that in the East is called enlightenment or awakening? Or are some truths fundamentally inexpressible through the screen and must be lived through personally? Maybe Ritchie tried to do the impossible. Round 3. Answers and clarifications. Psychologist. The philosopher is right. This is more than just a voice in the head or a clinical problem. I admit that I talk about the mechanism but miss the essence of existence. Let us combine both views. Our brain is evolutionarily tuned to create a self-concept, a story about oneself. This story helped with survival in ancient times. I am a hunter. I am the protector of the tribe. I am the father of these children. But in the modern world, this story has become toxic and grown to monstrous proportions. I must be rich. I must be better than others. I am my status and reputation. In the elevator, Jake is experiencing precisely the destruction of this story. It is as painful as physical death because the brain perceives the destruction of the ego as a direct threat to the survival of the organism. The film critic asked about the film's complexity. Yes, Ritchie uses the external crime plot to show an inner psychological process of transformation. It is as if one were to make a film about how a person comes to understand a complex mathematical theorem. Technically difficult, but artistically possible and necessary. Film critic. I catch myself having gotten too carried away with the symbols and missed the simplicity. Here is the direct answer. Matcha, the other gangsters, the shootouts, they are real people and events in the plot of the film, but all of them follow the same pattern: greed, fear, and the thirst for control. Ritchie shows that gold controls everyone through their own greed and ego. This does not mean that he is not real to them. He is absolutely real to the extent that they believe in him and feed him with their actions. Remember the finale? Jake comes to Matcha, his worst enemy, the man who wanted to kill him, and sincerely apologizes, admits his guilt. This is the moment of the ego's surrender, when he stops playing Gold's game by Gold's rules. And what happens? Matcha loses all power over him because Jake has stepped out of the game, not because he became physically stronger or more cunning, but because he stopped feeding the ego, his own and that of others. Philosopher, you are right. This is enlightenment, only told in the language of a gangster action movie with Jason Statham. Philosopher. The psychologist has added a critically important understanding: the evolutionary mechanism of the emergence of the ego. Without understanding how identification with thoughts works biologically, philosophy really hangs in abstract air. And the film critic has shown Ritchie's mastery, how the director translated an abstract philosophical idea into concrete dramaturgy with characters, conflicts, and resolution. Here is my clarification and synthesis. When the ancient sages said the ego is an illusion, they did not mean that it does not exist physically or that it is a hallucination. It exists. It is functional. It is needed for basic survival, like a program in a computer or an operating system. The problem is not the existence of the ego as such, but that we make the fatal error of identification. I am this program. I am these thoughts. At the end, Jake does not kill Gold forever and does not get rid of the ego once and for all. He simply sees it for the first time, as a separate phenomenon, a program, a mechanism, but not as his true self. The voice in his head continues to speak even after the finale, but Jake already knows for certain, that is not me. I am the one who hears this voice. That is the real and only freedom of a human being. Round 4. Putting the puzzle together. Psychologist. Final position. Thanks to the philosopher, I have understood that the problem is not that we have an ego, but that we have completely merged with it and do not see the boundary. Thanks to the film critic, I have understood that this complex idea can be shown through a dramatic story accessible to a mass audience. My main point: Sam Gold is a mechanism of self-deception built into the human psyche by evolution. We can learn to work with it if we first see it as a separate phenomenon. Film critic, final position. I realized that Ritchie did not just make a convoluted art house film. He created a cinematic riddle koan where the very form of storytelling equals the content. The viewer gets confused and angry because the hero is confused. The main discovery: the film shows that an invisible inner enemy can be defeated only through awareness and surrender, not with bullets and not with cunning. This is a true revolution for the action genre. Philosopher. Final position. Psychology has provided the precise language and mechanism, cinema, the vivid image and dramaturgy, philosophy, the historical and existential context. Together, we have come to understand that Gold is not just a character in a film, but a universal human drama playing out within each of us. The East called it avidya, fundamental ignorance of one's true nature. The West, original sin. Guy Ritchie called it Sam Gold. The essence is the same. We wage war against our own shadow and think it is a war with the external world. Final meaning. Who is Sam Gold really? Sam Gold is not a physical character. He is a universal principle of human consciousness. He personifies that part of the psyche that lives exclusively by fear of loss, greed for possession, and a constant neurotic need to prove its worth through comparison with others. In the film, everyone fears him because he represents their own ego, an inner tyrant and dictator who endlessly says, You are not enough as you are. You need more money, power, recognition. Trust no one. Everyone wants to use you. His colossal power lies in the fact that he has made everyone believe a fundamental lie, that this paranoid voice of fear is their true self, their genuine essence. Why is this idea important for each of us? We live in a world where Sam Gold speaks through advertising, buy this, and you will finally become happy and significant. Through social networks, show everyone that you are more successful, more beautiful, more interesting than others. Through corporate culture, work yourself to exhaustion, otherwise you are a loser. Through our own night fears, if you do not succeed, you are nobody, a void. Ritchie's film shows radically that the most dangerous and invincible enemy is not outside in the form of competitors or foes. He sits in our own head and pretends to be us. And until we learn to recognize his voice and separate it from our true self, we will live in an invisible prison of our own illusions and fears, just as Jake spent 7 years in a real concrete cell only to realize later that the real prison had always been in his mind. So here's the truth you've been running from. Sam Gold is as real as you make him. Every time you listen to that voice saying, "You're not enough," every time you chase money to prove your worth, every time you destroy relationships because you can't trust anyone, you're feeding him. You're making him stronger. The philosophers were right. The enemy isn't out there. The psychologists explained how your brain tricks you into believing this voice is you. The film critics showed you how Ritchie filmed the invisible war happening inside your head right now. But knowing doesn't free you. Seeing does. Jake spent 7 years in a concrete cell to figure out the real prison was always in his mind. How many more years are you going to spend in yours? Here's what I want you to do right now. Drop a comment and finish this sentence. My Sam Gold tells me this. Write the exact words that voice says when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. When you can see it written outside your head, you start to see it's not you. And if this hits you like a brick, which it should, hit that subscribe button, because I break down philosophy, psychology, and cinema like this every week. No fluff, no motivational BS, just the stuff that actually rewires how you think. The game's rigged, but only if you keep playing by Gold's rules. Watch what happens when you stop.